What do you think initially made you believe that there was a there or that aliens exist?
If all of a sudden an alien race showed up to the United States, how quickly our differences would dissolve.
The government runs like a Disney movie. Nobody knows how the movie's actually going to end up.
I am currently taking an online college course from Dr. Pasalka, who's covering this subject. They're space brothers here for harmony, because if you shove something up my ass, you are not my friend.
They're space stepbrothers.
Space stepbrothers. That's right. I can tell you right now that I personally witnessed at least 150 people potentially being in danger from whatever the was up there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 of Shot Takes. Tonight, we have a returning guest, Matt, on the other side of the table. He was with us on the Ghost episode of Shot Takes. Tonight, we're going to be talking about aliens. So if you like talking about aliens and what implications that could have for society, that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And then we have Dave, of course, over here behind the computer. And let's go and get into it, Matt.
All right. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So if you want to just give people an introduction to who you are and, your experience and everything.
All right. So again, my name's Matt. It's great to be back for a second time. As you know, I'm a hospice nurse, have been for 7.5 years now. And I also have a background in both history and communications, former member of the United States Marine Corps, parent and all that other nifty stuff that we, totally checking off all my boxes as a middle-aged white dude. Yeah.
That's awesome. So tonight we're going to be, if you haven't been to Shot Takes before, we drink a shot for each topic that we go over. There are 6 total topics, and we try and mix it up. Tonight we're going to be doing E and J on my side of the table, and Matt is going to be doing
Maker's Mark.
We usually do random, but for tonight's episode, we're going to be doing just one thing because mixing it up for Matt wasn't really his style.
No, not my style. Dancing with the one that brought me. Thank you very much. All right.
But let's go and get into it. Dave, you want to get us the first question?
Sure thing. While they're taking their shot here, question number 1. What initially convinced you that aliens exist and have visited our planet?
Okay, that's good. We should start definitely drinking now. All right. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Okay, so first thing, we need to define some terms before we go any further.
Okay.
Because one of the things I learned going into this subject is we all bring a whole bunch of prepackaged BS. Okay. Hollywood, comic books, whatever. When you say the term aliens, everyone has an image in their brain of what that is. I will tell you point blank, get it out of your head. When you go into this, because the simple answer to this is I'm not convinced aliens are from anywhere else. I'm not convinced there's aliens. I don't even, if I do use the term alien when I'm discussing this, I would tell you that I use the term as it would be something in the old school term, as in, foreigner to this place, this reality, whatever this is. So what I will tell you is I am not a believer in the idea or just the narrative of this phenomenon happens and it is obviously extraterrestrial and it obviously comes from another planet and they're coming down here in spaceships and they're doing whatever. Okay. All right. The simple fact, when I go through this, I will refer to this as a non-human intelligence. I am convinced that there is a non-human intelligence acting here, whether or not it came from a different planet, whether or not it comes from a different dimension, whether or not it's already here and we just didn't know it. It's a species that lives next to us. Right. If there's something in our own reality in a different frequency that kind of fades in and out and we just don't see it because in an evolutionary scale, we just are not prone.
You mean like a 4th dimensional being, something that they like explored a bit in like the Interstellar movies?
Maybe. I mean, that's one. So I will tell you that there are roughly, if you go down this rabbit hole for the folks at home, you will go down this thinking, and I did the same thing because I had all this prepackaged crap in my head of there are planets coming from, or there are people coming from a different planet and they're going to come here and they're going to land, and they're going to do whatever. the people who look at this subject now academically in a serious manner, there's like 75-ish theories of where these things are coming from. 6 of them maybe involve beings from another planet. And when you look at it, beings coming from another planet is actually the simplest explanation that you have. And that tends to get into where things warp a little bit.
I guess the thing I will say to that is things tend to be simple in my view of the world. And I guess I'll kind of set a basis for my beliefs on the system before we really get into it. I believe that aliens certainly exist in some capacity somewhere in the universe. Whether or not they visited us is to be debated, and whether or not we have evidence that actually suggests beyond any doubt that these aliens actually do exist in whatever capacity they do exist, whether they be fourth dimensional beings or otherwise, or they're just from another planet or under the ocean or who knows. But I'm not completely convinced. I don't expect you to convince me. I just want to have a conversation on it and learn as much as I can.
And boy, if I had the evidence to where I could convince you and the rest of the world, I would be right there. But there are certain things, as even if I'm sitting here, I'm not an expert, and to be honest with you, there's no one who is an expert. There's just people that are asking questions.
Yeah.
I will tell you that there's been a big shift in 2017 since the government revealed that, we do have people who look at this crap, of the types of people. I believe I said, in my last podcast, what got me interested in subjects like this isn't the fact that people were talking about it. You can turn on the Travel Channel and find ghost documentaries, UFO documentaries, things like that. Most of them, quite frankly, very poorly done.
Right. And they're geared to keep people watching.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I remember going through a phase when Ghost Hunters first came out, right? And I was really into it. And then I realized that I could literally just watch the last 5 minutes of the show to see if they caught anything and save myself 55 minutes of these guys just staring blankly in the darkness. But the UFO topic is different. We have people that tell ghost stories all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have congressional hearings on ghosts. We have people that tell Bigfoot stories all the time. We don't have congressional hearings on Bigfoot. There are people that tell me the Jersey Devils, out there in the Pine Barrens, New Jersey. We have not shut down the Pine Barrens from tourist activity so we could send the National Guard out, go look for this thing, right? What is it about UFOs? What is it, or UAP, or whatever people call them now? What is it? I think that's the more important question. What is it about that has Congress interested? What is it about that has very important people stepping down from their positions to say these things are happening, and there's some sort of threat, whether it be to flight safety, whether it be to national security, that there, as I've said in the last time about my boxes, or saying, my famous saying, there's a there.
Right.
That is something I am absolutely convinced about. Now, as far as the idea of non-human intelligence or alien, how long have they been coming here? With my background in history, I can tell you that if you look at this from a historical perspective, there are plenty of things in history, plenty of stories of history that you look at, and if you look at it through this framework, and not just what people were saying, everywhere from the Bible to Roman history to Japanese history, these things that are out there, and you're like, wait a minute, this sounds familiar.
So that brings up the core of the question that I wanted to get to. What do you think initially made you believe that there was a there, or that aliens exist? What do you think was that initial core foundation that this is an absolute truth?
Okay, so that's tough, because I'm very cautious of the word belief. That's how people spring up cults and new religions left and right. And I'm saying that as a deacon in my church. Okay. Yeah. But what convinced me was the evidence that's there. So when you talk about something, we'll talk about something like law enforcement, right? There's no absolute 100% case, right? There's enough evidence there to say this probably happened. There's probabilities. And if you can convince 12 people on a jury that this probably happened, then somebody goes to jail, right? We have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of UFO reports. I don't want to be one of these people that just wants to rely on the government, to find my truths in life. But the fact that all of a sudden what switched for me was the people that were talking about it.
How old do you think you were when that happened?
Oh, I mean, I would tell you it happened in 2017.
Okay.
What happened look, if you look at my background, all right, and I'm friends with both you guys. The whole reason I'm on this podcast is because I'm friends with you guys, right?
No, we just found you on the street.
Found me on the street.
You want to come in and do a podcast on aliens?
That's right. That's actually how I became friends with Tim, guys. So for those of you listening at home, I'm like, oh, that guy's flying a drone. That looks cool. I have some drone questions. I'm going to go bug this guy.
He's like, hey, you want to join my ghost hunting group? It's like,
what? Yeah,
I'm flying a drone, dude.
That's right, dude. That's right. I was the creepy guy in the parking lot. Like, I have a group y'all want to join. There's my white van over there. Yes.
There's a green alien man.
Green alien. Pay no attention to this. So the thing that convinced me of this to get back on track here, when it comes to the UFO topic. All right. Last time I talked as a hospice nurse about some of the creepy things that I've seen, that other people have seen, that I've experienced, firsthand, to say there's something more to my reality, because I tended to be very materialistic. Like, it is, here's the science, this is what I'm looking at, and I'm not really convinced. When I'm coming here and I'm sitting with you guys, or I'm sitting at, we're hanging out with our friends and I'm having these conversations, I will always be the guy that went out there, because honestly, most of the stuff ends up in my lap. Like I don't have to search very hard. Right. Most of this stuff ends up in my lap.
Well, speaking of stuff coming in your lap, you want to talk to us? We don't have a ton of time on the first topic. We had so much we want to talk about tonight. On the topic of evidence, what evidence do you think that you've captured in your? So
I'll have Dave pull up a video. As far as UFOs go, the last time I was here, I would have told you that absolutely, I've seen some strange things, but I would not have told you that I've definitely seen a UFO, right? There's stuff I put in that box of, this is interesting, but I can't come out there. I've had 3 incidents that all happened around my home. And guys, the stuff that you're hearing now is and this video that I'm about to show you is the first time this has gone public. And I do please understand that, when you see this video, this is a guy at 3 o'clock in the morning who was in his kid's room and woke up and just happened to look out the window, because I was looking at the moon, because I'm an amateur astronomer, and looked a different direction and saw these things. But I've had 3 incidents. The first incident was on July 16th, and I actually put it on a Facebook post out there. I was sitting in my sunroom looking up, and I was looking over into the sky. It was January. It was like 5 degrees. One of the super cold nights that we had this winter. Not that we get a ton of them anymore.
That may be an important detail.
Yeah, I did that too, because I was looking at the weather, because I'm all about correlating data, right? It's one of the things that a nurse does, and what's the things an investigator does, right? You're looking for any trends. You're looking for something like this. But anyway, I'm sitting in my sunroom. I just sat down with a glass of Maker's Mark. Because I had the world's crappiest week at work, and I just wanted to sit down, and if any of you who are parents at home, my kids had the television. And I just went into my sunroom, and I'm sitting out there, and there's this beautiful moon that's on the snow, and it was just so peaceful. And I'm like, I'm going to sit here. I'll try to watch maybe a show on my phone or something like that, but sit in a dark room where it's relatively quiet. And all of a sudden, I see something. Originally, I think it's a satellite. All right. Again, I mentioned I'm an amateur astronomer. I've been looking at the sky since I was 8. I know what the satellites look like. I know what an iridium flare is. When you'll see this spot, it gets dark and then it gets really bright and then it gets dark again. That's the satellite mirrors turning. I know what Starlink is. Yeah. All right. It kind of blows my mind that there are people who don't know what Starlink looks like when it's up anymore, because it's been around. At first I get the UFO reports about that, but now we're at a point where we know Starlink happens, right? When you see that chain of satellites go up in the sky, But I'm there, and originally I think I see a satellite and it, passes the one tree now, that's in front of me. And granted, but it doesn't come out the other side. I'm like, okay, that's weird. But go back to sipping my whiskey. Now, granted, and again, for the record, I've had like 2 sips of whiskey, so it's not it's not like I was on my 3rd bottle of Maker's Mark. There's lots in the sky. So anyway, I'm looking due west from my house, and me being one of these guys, I pay for the apps on my phone. Pull up old flight radar because I see another one, and it's this light that just starts in the sky, goes. If I had to describe it, they look like bright white fireflies.
So there are more than one.
There is more than there are, at this particular case, there's more than one, but not at the same time. Okay. Like they're coming in there and they're going out there. So I pull up flight radar. I pull up my satellite apps, even though I know it's not a satellite and I know it's not the ISS because I've seen it a million times. Satellites don't move like that. Okay. And these things would just, and it would just be random. Like there would be this light in the sky. It would start as a dot and then it would just move, do some weird motions and then just disappear. I call my wife over because I'm like, I need somebody else to see this and I don't want to panic my kids. So I call my wife over. My wife takes a couple minutes to get over there because she's making macaroni and cheese for the kids.
That's a good choice.
Like right there. Like, so, I mean, in typical real life fashion, this is what happens, right? So she finally makes it over there. And all I could think of is, please, dear God, let these lights continue to happen because I don't want my wife. Because here's the thing, when people know you're into like paranormal things or things like that, you don't want to be the guy. Like, I don't want to be the guy that's the eyewitness. I would much rather be next to the eyewitness. You know what I mean?
It's so hard, right? Like, how do you not be the guy when you're reporting stuff like this?
Exactly. But anyway, my wife saw this and it, she saw that, and she saw these lights and it lasted for about 20 minutes and then they disappeared. They didn't come back. So fast forward to March 3rd, early in the morning, around 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm in my kids' room again. Still, my kids are young enough. They still have nightmares, things like that. So you're on parent duty, right? I crash in the kids' room a lot. So I get up, and this is it's very important to the story. The bed in the kids' room generally hurts my back. So I'm up around typical, I told you, checking the middle-aged dad boxes, right? I'm generally up like, 2 o'clock, 3. I don't get a full night's sleep. Exactly. Like, that's right. But my back hurts. So you get up because the bed's not really comfortable. It's comfortable for them, not for you. All right. And if for anyone younger in the audience, it's going to happen to you, so don't laugh. But anyway, so I get up and again, being an amateur astronomer, I've been drawn to the sky since I was a boy. Stars, comets, things like that. All that, it's fascinating to me. So I go up and I look out the window as I'm stretching out my back, and I see this light off to the northeast, and it goes and I see it. And originally I think it's a helicopter because I live fairly close to an airport where medevac comes in and out. And I'm used to seeing these things in the sky where a light gets really bright. And generally it's a helicopter with its spotlight turning as they make their range or make their turn to wherever they're going to pick up somebody who's hurt. But this isn't what happened. This light stayed the same. And then it started doing this really fast motion across the sky, coming to a dead stop, did a little bit of back and forth, and then shot straight up.
How high do you think this is? And I know it's difficult to discern that, but
I don't even want to speculate because I can't even tell you the distance and altitude. One of the things I can tell you about is the motion. All right. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that there is not an airplane, a helicopter, drone, or anything that does movement that fast, mm-hmm. that quickly, and the range that it's covering. What got me is the way it shot up in the sky. Because when I say it shot up in the sky and disappeared. Okay. What we have doesn't do that. Speaking veteran to veteran, things like that, those of us who can identify military aircraft by sound, those of us who mess with drones and things like that, they don't do that. What got me about this story is, so I stand there for 2 more minutes and there's nothing happening. And I'm just dude, it's 2:45 in the morning. What the hell was that? Mm-hmm. I mean, so I go back and I sit back lay back in the bed and I shut my eyes because I'm tired and, got to get up for work in the morning, the real life stuff. About 10 minutes, I lay there for about 10 minutes. And this is probably, out of all these stories I'm about to tell you, this is the part that creeped me out. There was this thing in my brain that says, go back to the window. I go back to the window and I stand there for a minute or so. This damn light shows up again and does the exact same thing. Now I'm not sleeping the rest of the night.
What time is this again?
This is right around 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
which is important because the video we're about to show, this happened on March 24th, about the same time period in the morning. And I managed to capture this. And again, this video is not good, but this is one of the bright lights that I caught. You guys will see it.
So here it is. So it comes over, it stops, moves again, stops,
and just disappears.
Yeah.
What you don't see in that particular light is that there were smaller balls of light that are coming out. That my cell phone only picked up the brightest one. Okay, it's a Google Pixel 5, people. Sorry, it's what I got.
Right.
Okay. What got me, and this forever sealed the deal, because I, believe it or not, having the guy over here as who wants to talk about this stuff, how do I put this? I really don't want to talk about this stuff. I wouldn't be if I wasn't sitting here with my friends. But I was still of the mind where up until this particular point, I wouldn't have said I saw a UFO. The other stuff freaked me out, but it was I still wasn't ready. One of the smaller balls of light from this particular, what you saw in the video, all of a sudden, instead of going back in, because they were like going back towards it before these things would disappear. They were very tiny, but this thing just shot out from where it was on the horizon to about 110 degrees in a position in the sky above me, came to a sudden stop, then disappeared. I have seen missiles go off. I have seen rocket ships go off. I've seen plenty of satellites. The other stuff, maybe you could make an argument for. Maybe there was cloud cover, maybe whatever. This thing shot faster than anything I've ever seen, ever, looking in the sky, maybe with the exception of a shooting star.
Yeah, so I guess we're getting close to time. Some of my comments on it. Obviously, it's very difficult to tell exactly what's going on because it's a cell phone looking up at the sky. I don't know what you're supposed to do in a situation where you see that kind of stuff or how you're supposed to capture it, but we do have some discussion on that later. In terms of what it could be, the difficulty I always have as somebody who wasn't physically there, though didn't actually see it, is that there are so many things that happen in our skies on a day-to-day basis. It's so hard to say for sure that it isn't this or it isn't that, because there's so many you have to cross off a list of what it could be. You know, it certainly could be that, but is it more likely to be the other stuff? Is like what I'm really getting at.
And I get that, which is why up until that particular point, that small ball of light traveling at the speed it did, with the direction it did, the distance that would have had to cover. All right. So with that, you know, that's where I can say, to me, that's anomalous. That is not a satellite. That is not a drone. That is not an aircraft. Because if there was an aircraft and it came to a sudden stop from that type of speed, whoever was in it just turned to jelly. All right. All right. You know, I've taken multiple physics courses. I get this. All right. And I think that's one of the problems you get with evidence. Okay. Yeah, I showed you a blurry video and it's the best. And I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. You know, I'm just the guy who's reporting what he saw.
That's the thing too. Like, even if you showed us a crystal clear video or something that was that far away, like with a higher quality camera or whatever else, there is still room for doubts over what it could be. It could be AI.
The other part of it is we live in an age. Okay. You know me. All right. You know me, you know my family, you know that. You are much more likely to say, if Matt saw this, then this is what he's telling me is what he saw. All right. Somebody sitting at home, I don't expect him to believe this, because we live in an age where technology is to the point where we can fake anything. All right. To a pretty high degree. The internet is chock full of fucking fake UFO videos.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the tough part when we talk about evidence, which, I know we want to get into a little bit later. So I think we should probably stop there.
No, we talked about some evidence stuff in this topic. Some of the other questions, I believe that's more like, I wanted to see like what you knew as like the most true evidence to you. But we're at time, so we're going to move on to the next topic.
Okay, that's fine.
The second question I have here, which I'll get into as soon as we do our next shot, whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Question number 2 is shot takes.
You want me to read it off for you, Tim?
Yeah, go ahead and read it out.
Question number 2. What should someone observing a UAP/UFO do?
Now, just to kind of prep you here, we have some resources that I want to kind of cover. But what is your initial impression? Like you had seen this thing in January, right, of 2024 to clarify, and then you had time to like understand that if it was back in the sky in that exact location, you had time to prepare yourself for that again. Right?
The thing that happened in January happened in a different direction.
I see.
What happened in March, that happened twice in March that I caught. Was a different story. And now I can tell you that I have a Cyanex camera. That you guys.
What is that exactly?
Cyanex camera is a type of night vision device.
Okay.
If there are any people in there, and I just caught this on a preview watching the History Channel, but apparently on the the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, I saw them on a preview using this as a little handheld device, but it picks up night vision.
Yeah, I would just like on a personal level, without like looking into what we're about to get into resource wise that I have pulled up here. There are a number of things that are not that expensive. I think that if you really wanted to just give some data out as opposed to just like recording with cell phone, you can probably buy like a handheld like radar system that you can just like at least get a speed off of it, right? With shooting the laser up at it and see, even if it's not directly coming at you or away from you, you can get some kind of generality of how fast it's going.
I think if you have that, but one of the things I would tell you is most likely when you're finding this stuff, you're probably, unless you're actively investigating any type of scene, you're probably not going to have that.
Oh, you're certainly wrong. I mean, if I had seen it and it was like something that was like larger, like much closer to me, that I could say that I could see its physical characteristics like people have in history, I would be obsessed, right? Like I would buy equipment and find evidence and try and get it myself to prove that it exists, because I want to be able to say that like for certain to other people that this is truth. This isn't just like I'm just telling stories or whatever else. I want to be able to do that the same that you're trying to do for other people, because how do you do that otherwise, right?
So are you saying that everybody should have like a in case of UAP break glass?
I think what got me about this subject.
Hold on. Okay. Instead of that, I'll just be like Wonder Woman and I'll just spin around as like
that's right.
End up with my
you got your radar gun.
That's right. So as far as that goes, one of the things that got me about this subject is the number of people who are willing to ignore it. Part of it may be the whole tinfoil hat thing. I mean, we joked about that, and
it's
we
the thumbnail of this video, hopefully.
But we joke about that, but I think one of the things we have to realize is these people who have experience, that experience is real to them. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things whenever I deal with a patient who tells me what pain, and this is one of the first things you learn in medicine. All right. And it will aggravate you when you're sitting there and somebody's on their cell phone, like, yeah, I got a pain 9 out of 10, and they're, playing, whatever on their phone. But a patient's pain is whatever they say it is. Okay. You don't get to treat on what you think that patient's pain is. You deal with that pain. Likewise, there are people that pain is completely subjective. A lot of these experiences are completely subjective. So collecting evidence on it becomes very, very difficult, because there are people that have seen the same anomalous event in front of them and will tell you 3 different shapes and 3 different colors. That does not mean that any of them were lying.
Yeah. Or there are people that are faking injuries to try and get more medications.
Yeah, just like there are people that are going online right now that are posting fake UFO videos because it's clickbait. They're getting attention from it.
They get their little bit of revenue. They know that it's going to be fake, and they're just trying to make their money.
It's absolutely true.
I have some resources here. If you want to pull up, I have a sighting heat map of how often people report seeing UFOs in America. And I will say that that's one kind of downfall of our culture, is like when we think about these topics, we always think of it like from an American scope, like how often are people outside of America reporting stuff. I really didn't look into that. I'd like to look into that sometime.
Can I stop you real quick on that? Because there's a point on this, and a lot of debunkers put that, like, most people who report UAPs are in Western society, things like that. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you look at it from a historical or cultural or anthropological perspective, these people see the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Aboriginal tribes in Australia refer to them as spirits, just like a lot of African tribes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
They already have a system of beliefs that incorporates this. How many I know this map's on there, but I want to know how many Native Americans are actually reporting this. I bet they're not, because there's plenty of Native Americans who would just say, oh, those are the star people. Our ancestors talked to them. Okay. You know, I mean, it's just, but it's part of their day.
Yeah.
All right. When I'm saying this is a religious person, if something really great happens in my day, I say, thank God, and I move on. Okay. It is part of that. It's part of that. So yeah, I mean, these maps are important, but I think what you really have to do is put that into context, because if you put this map up here and said, oh, compared to worldwide, the United States sees the most UFOs. We don't have a culture where this framework fits in. So this is anomalous to us. It is not anomalous to a shaman in Australia. It is not anomalous to a person who belongs to a tribe in Africa. It is not anomalous to someone who belongs to a tribe in, you know, a Native American tribe in the American Southwest.
So I wonder
I
if
mean,
we could find something similar for other westernized,
that's
trending atheist agnostic countries like West Europe.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be something similar to this, or if it's. Because I also think it might be that, Matt, but it's also culture too, right? Like, look at Roswell, New Mexico,
Right.
820.9.
And the other part of that is how many of those. Now look around where there are military bases. I am absolutely certain that there are a lot of these things that are people who are like, oh shit, that's a UFO, when really, you know, you're looking at the new stealth, you know, bomber or whatever, and they just don't want to, you know.
So just so we don't leave audiences aghast of what the information actually means. So this is sightings per 100,000 people, I believe. I forget the exact stats. Reported UFO sightings per 100K residents. So to kind of break this down, we just like click on random area. So they have 261 sightings, 121 sightings per 100,000 residents. So that's a pretty large amount, but I'm not. This is for what's the time frame on this? I know where I got this resource from. It said 2000 to 2023.
So this millennium.
So it's actually, I mean, like it's a lot, but it's not like an unquantifiable amount.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got this resources from for people like you. You probably didn't even report this, and you consider yourself like I'd assume.
Oh
like,
no, I can say, but I don't. I've never reported something to a database anywhere.
Yeah, but these are the people that are reporting it, which I don't know if that makes them more or less likely to be giving skewed evidence, I guess I would say. Like, if they're too far into the culture and they take anything that they see as a UFO.
I would tell you that from what I've seen in my research, and this is just some guy, right? You know, it tends to be my feeling that the people that actually report this to a UFO center or a database or something like that are people who don't necessarily believe, but are just going home from work or something like that. And they're like, holy shit. There are certain levels of, you know, people see some strange lights in the sky. Most of the time they'll blow it off. Right. I mean, I have before. I might've had many more UAP sightings and I just blew it off as whatever. And I went about my day.
Right.
I can think of about 3 off the top of my head that I've had in my life that I kind of X'd out as that's probably something else and went about my day. I think when you get to these cases where people report them, they report them because they don't know what else to do. There's a lot of people that report these and they may Google a UFO reporting site for the first time in their life because they need to tell somebody, and they don't know who to tell, because it's not like they can call the police most of the time. Most of the time, there are police that respond to these types of things. They may go out, they may go check the sky, things like that, take a report and go on their merry way, but they're not offering anything else.
Are they like the alien equivalent of Ghostbusters? We should start that business. Maybe we could make some money.
I'll tell you what, out there, there's we just want to buy an old ambulance and soup it up with a cool siren. And I never figured out what the hell all the stuff on top of the Ghostbusters vehicle was for anyway, and all the times I watch those movies. But anyway, getting back to this, I think what you see with these people is they need to tell somebody, like something clicked. I'm sure there are people that report, and I would not be surprised, because one of the first things you learn, if you start studying this, if you're home and something caught your eye and you're like, and there's a couple resources on here, books that I would point you towards to start, because the first thing you realize is, oh my God, there's so much bullshit.
Right. Well, before we get off the web page here, I get kind of distracted. The resource that I pulled this from is the actual website that you can go and report these incidents to. And I just wanted to touch on like who is actually reporting this, because I would expect maybe you would have at least like looked into this, but like this, if you see a UFO, this is where you can go and report UFOs. You want to click on the other tab here. I don't know what's going on. Good. Ad blocker has been updated.
You looking this up got a notification worm in your computer I'm dealing with. What do you need me to do?
It's the other link I have down in the
Okay.
document. Yeah.
I am actively fighting some issues with your computer now. I'm not even joking. No, you're good. So other resources, citing heat map and the how to file a report.
Yeah, how to file a report. Yes.
I've got it here.
Here we go. So this is the UFO reporting center. This is where you can go and file your reports, and that links to that heat map, and that's where the data gets filed. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of just go through and see what it is they're actually looking for and what people actually see. And if it's statistically driven, then that's a better way, I think, of like understanding what kind of UFOs there are and what you could look for and what you could dismiss. And I saw some interesting things. You would have kind of go through this with me, Dave.
Sure.
We're going to go and just file a report. So these are things that people commonly mistake. I don't know if you want to plus it or if it's big enough on the screen, but Starlink satellites, number one thing. I mean, it does look crazy if you've never seen it before.
Yeah.
I know one of the Starlink things they had like over the Super Bowl just to try and do it when people aren't outside, like potentially looking at it. If you want to go down to rocket launches, these are examples of what this kind of stuff looks like. So it's interesting that like they have to kind of filter out their evidence too.
But I'll tell you what, I think it's very important that you see this, because there are plenty of people that say, oh, those UFO nuts, everything's a UFO. No. Matter of fact, what I've run across from the people who are interested in this subject is their first duty is to discount everything it could be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they're not interested in saying, well, we saw this, like, it could be Venus, but it's probably a UFO. All right. I was much like on certain ghost hunting shows whose titles I will not say, like, this fly just landed on my arm. Could that be the ghost of a Confederate soldier from the Battle of Gettysburg? And you're like, dude, you're investigating in the middle of August. It's a fucking fly. All right. These things happen.
The fly has a little Confederate uniform on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless that fly pulls out a fucking musket and shoots you, I'm not convinced that it's the ghost of a Confederate soldier.
Long-legged the Confederate soldier, and he just shits on your shoulder.
Exactly. Yeah. Does that will rise again? Yeah. It's not it. So yeah, I'm very happy that they took this and said, hey, because there are people that legitimately want to find answers, and I'm really awesome. I think it's really awesome that these people have put this on here. I will tell you one thing about that video, and I told you about that light that shot up, and I'm like, holy shit, this is anomalous.
We're gonna go through this file report thing before you talk about that real quick. So this is the information that they ask for. This is what you see a UFO. I want to try and touch on this because we got like less than 5 minutes left here. They want to know the date and time. That's obvious. We don't have to actually. We're not actually filing it. We're just gonna kind of go through the duration of the encounter, and then we can keep scrolling down. Yeah. The location. We can put GPS coordinates in there. And I wonder if they want like the location of where you were. Enter the address where the sighting occurred, or drag the pin to. So I don't know whether or not that means like I saw it generally over there, because like you can't really tell if it's in the sky, right? You can't tell exactly where it is.
I would say, or drag a pin to mark the specific. If using a map, okay.
I would think this would be better if it told you where you were relative to it, and then gave a direction of where it was. I think that'd be a more efficient method of going about it. But yeah, we could do it in Port Jervis.
Yeah,
that's where we saw our UFO right there. Scroll down. Viewed from land, aircraft, boat. Oh, it's interesting. Location details. What did you see? Shape of craft. Let's click on that. So these are the different kind of crafts that people have been seeing. Apparently, cigar, baby.
Actually, I'll be honest with you. Cigar is one of the most common things that you will see in UFO reports. And it's pertinent because there are a lot of cigar-shaped craft in the sky that you can pick up from history, which was one of the things that kind of ticked off in my head early on.
That Renaissance painting, I think it was. I saw it on
that was but that's like that's more of like a traditional UFO. But there's this thing over there that if you're looking at, there's these two guys in the painting that are looking up, and there's this spherical thing, and they're like, "Oh, that's supposed to be angels." I'm like, again, speaking as a practicing Christian, I've read my Bible cover to cover, and that is not what I'm picking up off this.
Yeah,
What are the wheels and eyes?
Yeah, exactly.
Ezekiel or something.
I have a really great pastor, like every Christmas tends to share the meme about about the Christmas story about fear not, and it's the eyes and the wings and all that. And they're like, oh, yeah.
This is cool though. This is something we talked about last time you were here.
Angle of elevation. Yeah, I mean these are very as Matt would say, poignant questions that you should ask somebody if they saw this, so you could try and triangulate your data. We're only halfway through it. Let's scroll down here. These are pretty basic questions: speed, estimated direction. So here we go. Characteristics. Site was structured craft was not visible, not just
was visible.
What? Oh, okay. I was like, was not visible. What does that mean?
So what you're seeing is what you're seeing is that there's people who see structured craft. Triangle UFOs seem to be a big thing for structured craft, traditional, what people would refer to as flying saucers, things like that. And then there's people who just see lights. I would tell you that what I just saw was lights. I could not see a craft. Okay. So yeah.
Close encounter. Wait, hold on. This is wait. What is this? The object appeared to be a metallic sphere. Wait, here we go. Wait, could we go? Normal insect sounds with silent? What is this like?
So So for anyone who's ever been in the woods, all right, and have ever had a creepy experience in the woods, I know I have. But one of the most telling things is if you are used to being in the woods. I mean, I grew up in the country. Okay, there is a certain ambient sound that you expect no matter the season, right? Whether it's the way the wind or the forest sounds at night, and even in the winter when there's really nothing, it's a dead calm, but you can still pick up ambient sounds. When you're there, especially spring, summer, fall, and I always joke because I probably heard a Sasquatch at one time, and I thought it was a chipmunk because all chipmunks sound like Sasquatch going through the woods in October because the leaves are down, and like one chipmunk will go through and makes the biggest ruckus.
I was thinking like a Sasquatch, groan or something. What does a Sasquatch sound like?
It beats the hell out of me.
What does the Squatch say?
I'll let you know, but you need to get somebody else on that for that podcast. But one of the things I will tell you is what goes along with a lot of anything paranormal out in the woods or anything that involves a UFO sighting is those ambient sounds just disappear.
I guess my counter to that, and I see we have like animals react to the event and stuff like that. Why don't they react to our shit? Like we fly like drones and jets and helicopters.
Because I'll tell you what, I think that that's your response, but I think you've answered your own question. Like, which makes that sound happen or that sound disappearing even more pertinent is the animals have already factored you in. All right, the groundhogs in my yard know what distance I'm going to go to in my yard before I'm a threat.
I wish the deer would factor that in before they cross the road.
but that's right. They factor that, but we know that. So that, to me, that makes it even more pertinent because if there's planes flying overhead, we have bird strikes for airplanes. They bring down airplanes. Ask Sully, who landed in the damn Hudson. All right, they understand. Animals have adapted to humans in their environment, and they've adapted to human technology in their environment. So when all of a sudden they disappear and they go into like predator mode, like there's something moving in here that we do not like, they just shut up. To me, that says something. All right. I can tell you, like at springtime, the peeper frogs out by my house are deafening, when it comes out. If I went out there and all of a sudden they disappeared,
Like, damn, am I that ugly?
like seriously, all right? I'm like, yeah, it's nighttime. These things are out at nighttime. So it's probably not me, and I don't smell that bad. But I mean, in all seriousness, like that would give me pause. That, as a country boy, that would stop me in my tracks. You know, it's 60 degrees on a spring night. Where the fuck are those frogs that yesterday were deafening?
Yeah.
You know, and then if I saw a light in the sky beyond that, I would be like, oh shit. You know, I mean, this just became very pertinent to me. You know, and you listen to people who UFO stories, ghost stories, things like that, you'll watch the animals react.
So this is interesting too. It says, are you any of these pilot? Oh yeah, I forgot about. You gotta scroll up real quick. It shows close encounters here. So I wonder. I want to see like their data. Like how many people are reporting that they've been abducted by aliens.
I will tell you that
but
if you go into that, if you ask that question, and I would encourage anyone who's out there who would if you're going to actually actively investigate this, you better be in the most respectful tone and the most empathetic person there. And I'm saying this as a hospice nurse.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask that question, you have to make those people feel completely safe, because there are like, we make the joke about South Park and anal probes and things like that. But if you actually read alien abductions, and I will be the first to tell you that alien abductions are not the big thing that I get the most credence of, you know, like where I'm just like, I'm apt to believe that right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not apt to believe anything, but I'll hear that story. But there are things there that would quantify as rape in what we would consider. There are things there. I mean, it is not an experience that, if people are coming forward with, tend to be pleasant.
Yeah.
They tend to be very intrusive. They tend to be, I mean, they're traumatic. I mean, there's no other word for it. They tend to be traumatic. So I would tell you that if there's...
I guess the way you would look at it too, though, is like, if aliens view us as like animals, like, is forcing a dog to have sex with other female animals or female dogs, is that rape?
Well, I'll tell you what, we can get into human ethics later. But the fact is, if this happened to a human, all right, you know, I know that if I took someone against their will, strapped them to a table and shoved a probe up their ass, I would go to jail for a very, very long time, rightfully so.
But not if you cut a dog's genitals off.
Not if you cut a dog's genitals off, all right? But again, you know, that's a whole other ethics question for a different time. What I will tell you is, if you approach somebody who has an alien abduction, or somebody comes and talks to you about something like that, I personally would treat that like I'm talking to a rape victim. I would personally treat that like I'm talking to a trauma victim.
You'll get the most information out that way, for sure.
Not just the information, but again, what I said before, whatever happened to these people is real to them.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, I'm coming out here, and I'll be honest with you. It was one thing to go talk about ghost stories and things like that. Somebody, or, you know, come on the podcast. I showed you a video with lights in the sky. All right. There has been stuff that's happened to my kids since that one that happened, the first light sighting that happened in March. All right. That has affected my family. Okay. I'm bringing this up now only as a little bit of a public service, just because it's pertinent to this. Okay. What I'm telling you, there might be 3 people in my life that actually know this. I will tell you that in about a week after, my oldest son, who's 9, told my wife that he saw and I quote, and this, I want to say this before I tell you this. I do not bring this stuff up in front of my kids. My books are in a different place. They don't pick them up. There are no pictures. I don't watch sci-fi shows, believe it or not. I went through a tricky phase when I was in 5th grade, and I liked the X-Files in the 90s. All right. And to be honest with you, I didn't even like the Alien episodes. I liked the Creature of the Week episodes. I thought those were the best. But anyway,
I haven't seen X-Files myself.
Well, then treat yourself. But
we'll continue.
But this, it's pertinent to this. My 9-year-old told my wife, and I quote, he saw a black humanoid figure. Where he got the term humanoid is beyond me, but my 9-year-old is very smart. with cyan colored eyes looking in the window.
Are the Nazis back?
I'm going to tell you right now, if it is easy to write that off as a 9-year-old's imagination, okay? I do not like the fact that that report was sandwiched in between two lights in the sky sightings that I cannot explain, that I personally witnessed. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is June. My oldest son has to know where my wife and I are in the house at all times. And if he doesn't hear us moving, he calls out for us. He will not go in the shower unless I'm sitting, or me and my wife are sitting in the attached office next to the shower. And the door has to be cracked and we have to talk to him. He will not go from the living room to our kitchen, which you've been in my house, you know how close that is, at night without one of us standing in that door. So when I say that it is real to them, maybe it is 9-year-old imagination. I don't like the timing of it. As a father and as a guy who investigates things and looks into when people tell me things, I don't like the timing. Yeah. So this became as real as it could possibly be to me because it affects my kids.
The last investigative question I'll ask on that before we move on to the next topic. I guess, did you give any inkling to your son beforehand that you had seen something that you could not explain? Even in conversation with you?
No. Okay. I will tell you that when I told my wife about this, it was before the kids came home from school. I do not talk about these things. And my kids know that I like to play XCOM and I like to play Halo. All right. That's where that goes. You know, dad may be shooting at aliens and that's about as close as they get on that. I do not actively have these conversations in front of my kid. I never would, because what parent in their right mind would, you know, with kids that young? It's different if I had 3 teenagers.
There's a lot you got to teach them that, you know, they need to get.
Well, not only that, because at the end of the day, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I would never put my kids through that.
Do you have cameras around your house? I don't know if you want to even say that on camera, but
I have one, not things that would pick this up. However, I am currently looking into systems that would look directly to the sky.
I would certainly focus. Like I mean, you can put up your cameras however you want. If your son did see somebody, and let's say it's not related to the alien event, it might have been somebody actually outside of your house, which
it could be, which is just as scary.
Yeah, I mean that's I would say I don't know if that's more or less scary. Yeah. But I would focus on definitely the immediate proximity of the house, at least front back. And then maybe if you had something that is more focused toward the sky, I don't know what you would get. I would probably get an IR camera. Yeah. But before we belabor the point, we're over by like 8 minutes. So we're going to take 5 minutes off of the next topic, maybe 7 minutes off the next topic. So you ready? We're going to topic number 3.
Dang. Okay.
Cheers.
Question number 3 of the night. Do you believe we have a secret federal organization that monitors alien activity, a la Men in Black or XCOM?
Yes.
We do have sub-questions for that too. If the answer is yes, I can just read you the sub-questions.
Go for it.
Straight into it. Would this be an international organization? And if not, how do you keep events from leaking worldwide?
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack in that question. First off, we do have, there's currently a government agency called Arrow.
Okay, what is that?
Oh, really?
Yes, actually, I'll have you pull it up because I'm going to screw up. You know, as I'm 3 shots of whiskey in.
Yeah, sounds like a DC like organization.
How do you spell Arrow? Is it like an Indian, like a Native American
arrow? No,
AARO.
I will tell you that they do not get a lot of good press because they're really not doing their job. It was founded just a couple years ago. There's a lot of politics that are involved in that. Do I think that there are right there, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office? That is from the Pentagon.
Yeah, it's got a .mil. Look at that.
Yep.
Wow.
It is right there.
This is so. But like, I before we lose the core of the question, I didn't want to hear about this. I never even knew this existed. Secret organizations. I guess.
So this is an opinion. I have no fact. All right. From what I've gathered reading up on this topic, okay, there is some sort of narrative that needs to be controlled. I do not know who's pulling those strings. So last year, there was the Chuck Schumer amendment. Okay. Chuck Schumer, which would be the leading Democrat, that actually he's in charge of the Senate right now, the leading Democrat in charge of the Senate, but he's in charge of the Senate. Passed an amendment, or they wanted to pass an amendment to the rider that basically funds the military. That says the government if you have pieces of UFO or UAP craft and you are a private industry, the government will take eminent domain and take that from you. And we will make that public. It was a very real and very serious thing. Do you know who shot it down in the House?
Who's that?
In the House, it was the representative from Ohio. Do you know what his district covers? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Do you know what some of his major fund, or where he gets most of his funds for his campaigns? From the aerospace industry. And all of a sudden, he's like, no, this is bullshit. We just need to shut this down. And he made sure that it tanked in the House. It passed the Senate, but it tanked in the House. They're trying this again this year with that. So when you go back, and this goes back to my first point, when you said, well, what makes you so convinced about this?
Do you think
somebody's taking this seriously?
So with the government taking an active role, at least like showing an active role in this now by setting up this arrow and everything like that. I did watch this. I know you're not a big. I will get too far into politics, but he did answer the question in relation to aliens. Do you think that the president is appraised of these facts?
Yes.
Trump was actually asked. I know that people have their reservations about Trump, but he was actually asked whether or not he knows anything about aliens and whether or not they exist. And I'm pretty decent. I know humans generally are not good at catching lies, but when I watched his podcast with Logan Paul, he answered the question, for what I could tell, was very honestly, and I don't know if they just kept that information away from him. He said that he's not sure whether or not they exist effectively, but he will say that he does believe that there could be a deep state organization, is how he framed it, that may have control over something like that.
I'm going to try to let all my political opinions go to the side on that particular gentleman. With that, so there is a gentleman that I follow. There's a couple good podcasts out there, and one of them is Need to Know, and there's one of the guys on there is Roth Bolthart, who I talked about his book the last time I was here. It was In Plain Sight. And one of the things you pick up if you're new to studying this topic is the people who tell you this is probably going to happen in the next 6 months or a year, and something along those lines happens in the next 6 months or a year, and you start to pick up on the people who are saying, look, these are my sources and this is saying this. Ross Coulthart is an investigative journalist. He's an author. And what he just said, and this was actually, I believe, on the last episode of their Need to Know podcast, was that what he was told is that Donald Trump was briefed on this and that he fears for his life if he says anything.
I see.
So as far as that goes, there's a certain amount of things that people look at the government with a big capital G. And, everyone in the government knows what everyone else is doing. And anyone who's ever been in the military or worked for the government knows that that's complete bullshit. There's 25 departments who are all trying to get the same funding and everything else. And it's just so, as far as a deep state, I would say that, it's not as organized as people think it is. It's probably some people with their own agenda who are just saying this. I would say, however, that I cannot think, maybe with the exception of the Manhattan Project, I cannot think of something that would be more of a national security threat, risk, or a secret than UAP, UFOs, things like that. Because if there is this technology, if Roswell really happened, well, guess what? We have Arrow. Japan just said that they're creating a group to look into this. China has a group that looks into this. Documents from after the fall of the Cold War will tell you that the Soviet Union was very interested in this, and they had their own versions of Roswell that they went out to investigate.
I guess what's the international aspect of it? What do they do if an alien spacecraft lands and crashes in Africa? How do they they don't have the Men in Black mind wiper things? I assume they don't. Maybe they have the mind wiper.
Who knows? So I will tell you this: if you get into this topic and you look at crash retrievals or something like this, reports of crash retrievals, because I don't know. I don't have facts for you. I just, have read stories. But especially in South America, very much Monroe Doctrine, where the people in Brazil and the people in South America will say, and then the Americans showed up and this disappeared. So, I have a feeling that if it happened in Africa, people forget the United States has something like 200 fucking military bases all over the world.
Yeah.
Something goes down, we can probably, and this from being a veteran, I know this from being a veteran, we can deploy forces anywhere in the world within 24 hours, and usually we can get at least a team of somebody there a hell of a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, freedom's pretty dope.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you have oil.
Exactly.
It'll free you of all your oil.
Oh yeah, that's right. We really care about your human rights if you have oil under you. But geopolitics aside, because there's plenty. I will tell you this as a historian: you will never find politics and have it sin free. Okay, it's just not going to happen. But with that global presence, you have to ask yourself the next question. And this is one of the things why I'm always fascinated about this subject, because there's always a next question to think about, right? So China gets a UFO, America gets a UFO, Russia gets a UFO. And there are people that have the theory, that work off the theory that maybe whoever is this, like these crashed UFOs happened on purpose, and it was to let's see which one of the groups of monkeys can come up with the technology first.
Wow.
Which is terrifying.
That's a theory.
Is that better secretly held information-wise, or would you not want to introduce that to your greatest minds across the entire nation?
That is...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Matt.
no, I was going to say that is actually... So there is a professor at Stanford, I believe, Gary Nolan, who says the exact same thing. Like this, you need disclosure, because the government, how the government works, and we all know this, all right? If you go out on a mission, that mission, you don't know anything else, okay? All information in the government is siloed, meaning this is your space, you work in this space. Science and progress comes from collaboration. Yeah. All right.
The government runs like a Disney movie. Nobody knows how the movie's actually going to end up.
Exactly.
Everyone's just filming their scene and not worrying about
But I mean, that's exactly it. We just assume that there's somebody above that. All right.
And apparently not even the president, is it?
But I'll tell you what, I have no doubt. So if you were part of this, okay. And actually one of the books I'll bring up, and if you would show this, Encounters by Diana Pasulka. I linked to that book. She talks about people she interviewed in what she calls the secret space program. Okay. Diana Pasulka is a university professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. So this isn't just somebody like, I like UFOs. And I would highly recommend, if anyone's coming out here, because at the end of the day, this is now an academic subject, and you can start with this. Full disclosure, with all the thing that word is pointed at, I am currently taking an online college course from Dr. Pasulka, who's covering this subject and kind of an intro and all this. And it's amazing how much you get into history and philosophy and things like this in this subject. It is not just a nuts and bolts type of thing. She is actually a professor of religious studies. And she has access to the Vatican archives.
Oh, she was on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yes, actually, her. I would highly.
What are you gasping about over there?
She has access to the Vatican archives.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't hear that.
I would highly recommend listening to that if you guys are out there listening to the Joe Rogan podcast.
How does she get access to the Vatican archives?
Because she is a Catholic, theologian. Professor. I mean, she is.
I thought you would have to be like a clergyman or like a priest or something.
No, she studies this stuff for research. What got her into this subject, she will be the first to tell you, I did not believe in UFOs. I got interested in this subject from an idea of religious studies, being that, she was looking at the UFO phenomenon as am I looking at a brand new religion starting? Okay. Not, I believe in UFOs and I want to see this, but what she was noticing is her studies of Christian miracles or miracles in the church, or reports in the church, have an awful lot of things in common with UFO sightings and UFO abduction stories and things like that. Okay. And then she started to know people along this way and dig, because at the end of the day, she's getting information the same way I am at a much higher level. But most of the stuff that comes from me is just, somebody tells me a story and I just pull on the thread.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I go from there if I don't experience it myself.
Dave had something he wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
All I was going to say is, going back to the conversion of Constantine, when the Roman Empire went from being a pagan empire to a Christianized empire, and it's probably political propaganda like all things, but Emperor Constantine looking up in the sky and seeing a cross, the shape of a cross, immediately making him change his beliefs. Mm-hmm. Who's to say that's not aliens at work? And
I will tell you, looking at that, that was one of those things that always made me go, huh? When I studied history, because I studied and taught Roman history.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like looking back at it from like a modern lens, right? Like what it could be, how it could be explained from like our modern understanding of stuff.
So it's definitely one of those things that always made me go, huh? I wasn't there. I didn't see the cross.
Right.
However, I think we say that, and we as a society and we as people, when we talk like, oh, look, the Romans are Christian now. We tend to forget how ingrained those ideas were and what a big deal it is to suddenly change somebody's religious views. Take a look at America right now. Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced that the reason Joe Biden wouldn't come out and say, guys, we have evidence of a non-human intelligence, is there were people that would still burn him at the stake as a fucking witch. All right. You have deep religious sects. There are some religions that are perfectly fine with this. And it always made me wonder why the Catholic Church, why there was a papal announcement in the 80s saying, oh, extraterrestrial life is totally cool with our beliefs. Like, why did you feel the need to say that?
Yeah, it is interesting. The Vatican has like an actual astronomer, as far as I'm aware.
They do. The Vatican Observatory is one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it is. So
I would looking for heaven up there. What have they found? It? It's really nice. What if we fly there? That'd be nice.
It would be.
Do they have oil?
They have oil. We'd be there fucking tomorrow.
We'd liberate that shit.
We'd liberate that fucking oil.
That's right. Jesus, I will tell you right now, in the current American moment, I'm sure Jesus sounds very communist to a lot of people. Feed the hungry. That's some woke bullshit. Let's go out there and liberate
Sell
them.
all your things.
Yeah. Hey, who's paying for that?
Exactly.
The immigrants.
That's right. That Jesus guy went to Egypt, then came back. Can we trust him? He's probably a terrorist. Yeah. I mean, it's seriously one of the. I don't even want to talk about the current American moment right now. It hurts me.
Let's go to move into the next topic.
Right.
It's getting pretty heated.
Before they send the Marines to liberate heaven, yes.
What great filters should we be most prepared for? And to be specific, a great filter will be explained in a moment. Great
filter, Kardashev scale. Do you want to explain it? If you have a decent amount of knowledge on it, I'm sure you mentioned that you had some knowledge on it.
So it's the basics. So when you're talking about the scale, it's levels that the civilizations would come up with, right? So a level. Sorry, 4 shots of alcohol in.
I can explain it.
Go for it. You do it. You would explain better than me.
Level 1 on the Kardashev scale, basically a scientist, his last name is Kardashev, is a level 1 civilization, is a civilization that has complete mastery of their planet. That is not where we're at. We're at like a point like 7 or something like that, where we're able to obtain all the energy of our planet. A level 2 civilization is able to master the entire energy of their star and completely use that energy for whatever purposes they have. A level 3 would be galaxy, 4 would be universe, etc. If we've been looking out into the universe for a number of years with our telescopes and our IR telescopes and everything like that, and we have yet to see any civilization that has had a significant impact on their home star. The way that they would conquer their home star is this object called a Dyson sphere, which would surround the star and basically suck all the energy like a giant solar panel.
Yeah.
Yes. If we found something like that, that's insanely concerning, because it's only a matter of time, right? With the number of possibilities out there in the universe, if we just go one by one for every star and we look and see if there's something impairing that star that isn't a planet, it may likely be a Dyson sphere or whatever else. There's only so many ways you can capture the energy of a star. I guess what would you? What was the original question?
What are the great filters we should be most prepared for?
Yeah, so that's a bit later of a question I was getting to.
I will. So we're going to talk about filters. I think the biggest one for us is nuclear war, point blank. We are in a place right now that's probably the most dangerous since the height of the Cold War.
Just give a little bit of backdrop before you get into it. There are not any other civilizations that we can see out there that has reached Type 2 so far. So it's presumed that every civilization has died before they have gotten to a Type 2 civilization.
Yeah,
which is the great filter.
The great filter.
Yes.
The idea that there's something that you have to make it through this filter to progress to this next level, and whether it's, the civilization killed each other with war, it got hit by an asteroid, the universe took it out, there was some sort of disease, whatever. So first off, let me address the great filter. At the end of the day, we are fucking monkeys with nuclear weapons. Okay, so whenever I see, and there was a great book by Annie Jacobson that just came out. It's got reviews, and I cannot speak personally yet, but it's called Nuclear War: A Scenario. Okay. If you want to link that on Amazon.
Absolutely.
But actually, the Pope even got a copy of that book, and honestly, it's fucking terrifying. From the people I've talked to who've read it, because when you realize how much power is actually put in the hands of one person, of the few, and how that can be taken is absolutely terrifying. So for me, that first great filter is right there. The second one is what we do to our environment. Like right now, we're at a point where there are microplastics in men's testicles. That's a thing. All right. Like this is, so I mean, what are we doing? They're finding plastics in places that they have no idea how the hell it even got there.
That is an interesting thing. I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I may be incorrect on that exact date, but China actually stopped taking recyclable plastics unless they're of a certain grade, because the health risks to Chinese people from microplastics was too high.
Yeah.
If China isn't willing to process something because of health risk to their people,
right?
That's what you do.
Because it seems to me that country would kill off a majority of its population in a heartbeat. And I'm saying that 4 shots of alcohol in, folks. So, but the Chinese and human rights don't exactly have the best track record. But to your point, these great filters that are out there. We have to be very careful with that. But the problem I have with the scale, okay, and as much as I enjoy it as a thought process, is human beings have this handful of knowledge, right? We figured out evolutionary things. We have an idea of how the universe works. We have a very minute grasp on quantum physics. We understand how to utilize it to make all this fucking technology work. We still have no idea of how the hell it works. Yeah. Right. So
we never ask if we should.
Exactly. We don't. All right. And every now and then, me being a guy who grew up in the 90s, every time I see something like, every now and then you see a story like dinosaur, they're absolutely convinced they can clone dinosaurs, like motherfucker.
Have you not seen the movies?
Exactly. Like we've already covered
another
this.
Jurassic Park. Come on.
We've already fucking covered this. Nothing needs cloned. Okay.
Yeah. And when it comes to like AI and stuff like that, you don't even see it as a debate topic, right? Like you don't see, it's not like talked about. It's like the single greatest existential threat to humanity that has ever existed. Yeah. And it's not even talked about.
So straight up, this is, I feel like, and I'm sure there's somebody I'm going to piss off at listening to this right now. Right. I felt this way during COVID. I felt like COVID was the ultimate, we're in a group project and we're really looking at the smartest guys to figure this out and pull us through to get that A. All right. the smartest people on the planet, whether you agree with them or not, have that. No, I'm talking about guys that can't agree on a fucking pizza topping. Well, I'll tell you that AI, we should be very, very fucking cautious about this. All right. To me, that says something. All right. I look around and I am always one of those people. I'm not a home repair guy. So if my sink goes down, I'm going to go talk to a plumber. And I'm going to listen to this plumber because you know what? He's a plumber.
Yeah.
All right. I am a hospice nurse. I am probably not the best nurse in the world. I don't claim to be, but
oh, don't say yourself short, man. Come on now.
I have 700 hospice cases under my belt. You might want to listen to what the fuck I say in this situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I may not always be right, but I could probably give you some sort of guidance on how this is going to play out. When you listen to the people who are dealing with AI or nuclear weapons or things like that, and they're out there saying, you need to pay attention to this. To me, you know, that says something. Now, when you get to something like Dyson spheres, things like that, and I guess going back to my original point about my problem with that scale, that is based on our thinking. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the great things about human beings is we got this little bit of knowledge and we just assume that everybody is fucking thinking like us.
Yeah.
All right. Would a civilization who came up a different way or evolved a different way under different conditions need their star or need all the energy on that planet? What if they worked on something, or what if they worked on a different level? What if they worked on, and this is one of the big things you'll find in UFO studies, what if they worked on a level of consciousness where they didn't have to plug in a coffee maker? There was something else that powered that, or they didn't have coffee, or they didn't have the needs that we have. We're assuming that every civilization out there has the exact same need structure as us, the exact same power structure as us.
That is a great point. I want to save that for point 5. I was hoping you wouldn't get to that logical train yet.
You can tell me to shut the hell up.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
So what do you got for us here, Dave?
I just wanted to bring up something I saw while in the waiting room at the hospital a couple weeks ago.
That's a great place to find information.
Get a new hobby, Dave. Quit hanging out in the waiting room at the hospital.
Well, you know, at least it gave me something interesting here.
Right.
So NBC did a little piece on scientists recently finding some weird infrared readings that may actually be Dyson spheres in 7 stars that are right next to each other.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson did a piece on this too, but go ahead.
Researchers say they've identified at least 7 stars that might be surrounded by super advanced alien megastructures known as Dyson spheres. Yes, I said alien structures, and I know what you're thinking, but just stay with me here, because the basic idea was this. Superior intelligent life might build big structures around their home stars or planets as a way to harness or reuse that energy. A 1960s physicist who came up with this idea, Freeman Dyson, argued that if these structures existed, there'd be so much energy that human scientists on Earth could probably spot it because it would emit a lot of infrared radiation. So in this new study, researchers say they found 7 sources glowing in the infrared, those are their words, but couldn't find an obvious explanation for why these sources are glowing so much, which could mean they're Dyson.
Yeah, so basically it's getting at that we have the new telescope up there. James Webb telescope. It has the IR capabilities, not just the optical capabilities. So they've been using it logically. I would think this is the best way to use something like this, to look for IR signatures for other stars, for potential, you know, Dyson spheres, whatever else. You may be right. They may not use Dyson spheres. Maybe they advance to a point where, like, we just generate energy by, you know, accessing the quantum realm of some other energy. Who knows how they generate energy? But with our current understanding of physics, the sun emits an immense amount of energy, enough to generate this in all of our life. So why wouldn't, you know,
absolutely
maximizing the capability of the star?
I'm very interested to see where this goes. So the other part of we're looking at these stars, I don't know how many light years away these stars are, but however many light years away these are, that's how far we're looking into the past.
Correct. They get into that.
So I'm very cautious of that. And the other part is I'm not entirely sure that I want to run into a civilization that can do that.
Yeah, that's exactly it too. I have some great filters here that I kind of just thought of on my own that I wanted to kind of read off that we might need to be prepared for, that, you know, things should be talked about in politics, not just, about like whatever X thing that doesn't really have bearing on the greater existential needs of keeping humanity alive. AI, meteors, disease, planetary magnetic pole flips, solar flares, discovering that faster to life travel is not actually possible, nuclear war, invisible black holes or the accidental creation of them from our scientific endeavors, advanced alien races, resource exhaustion, and something beyond our knowledge. Those are the things that I wrote down.
I think those are wonderful. And I will tell you this because as far as I know, I'm the only dad sitting in the room. Okay. I will tell you that a couple things happened whenever I became a father. One, things I'd never thought I'd worry about, I worried about. Two, there's something that clicked, and it clicked in the middle of a restaurant in the middle of a temper tantrum of all things. But another parent looked at me and just smiled and gave the wave because they got it. Okay. And what I mean by that is they got it, and all of a sudden, this is weird because it went from such a small thing to a big thing in my thought process. Because if you go to China, if you go to a Native American tribe, if you go to India, if you go to England, if you go to South Africa, in the middle of the Sahara, anywhere in the world, kids and old people are the same thing. All right. We have different traditions of how we handle them. We have different ways of how we take care of them, we rear them, but they're the same thing. Teenagers in ancient Rome would have cared a lot about the same shit that teenagers in modern America would have cared about.
TikTok.
Right? Well, maybe not that, but seriously, they would have considered dancing. They would have considered fashion. They would have considered the opposite sex. They would have considered, disobeying their parents. They would have shot, or tried to get around their tutors or their school teachers or things like that. And all of a sudden, what carried through that process by the end of the night is I am a member of a species, not just a tribe. Ronald Reagan famously said to the UN, that he wondered what would happen if all of a sudden an alien race showed up to the United States, how quickly our differences would dissolve, right? I don't want my 3 sons to fight the same battles that have been going on for 1,000 fucking years, whether it's for resources, politics, religion, nationalism, anything. There is not 1 gallon of oil. There is not 20 yards of land. There is not 1 religious belief that is worth my son's life. And fuck you if you think that is true. That you think that my sons are worth any of those things, because I won't have it. I won't sacrifice them for that. So once I started thinking as I'm a member of a species instead of a member of a tribe, and I'm very proud of my tribe. I'm a very patriotic American. I love America. I think America has brought a lot to the world, as facetious as these times are. The idealism and the bar that America sets, whether we hit it or not, is one of the first times in human history where we said people can govern themselves. We should be here. Mm-hmm. We haven't always, as a society, made it there, but quite frankly, America has some really lofty goals. The idea of America is a really lofty goal for humanity.
Is it an optimal goal, though? Because typically the most optimal strategy tends to win out. Is it something that will stand the test of time?
Actually, yes. And I'll say this because it's this, I know we're getting a little off topic here, but I will say this right now. And I think this is very important to the UFO subject, because if a UFO lands on the White House lawn, or it lands in Beijing, or if it lands in Moscow, all of a sudden we're going to realize that, yeah, we don't like the Russians, but they're not the gray aliens. And you know what? We have a lot in common all of a sudden. And this is an existential threat, and we have to play nice in the sandbox.
Hope it's not like that.
I would tell you right now that And this kind of goes back to if you've ever read Starship Troopers, the book, not the movie. And I don't agree with everything in the book, but it's the
I've
idea.
only played Helldivers.
Okay, close enough. But so here's the idea. You being a veteran.
Aliens.
All right. You being a veteran.
Yeah.
Okay. An American soldier goes missing. We will risk hundreds of other American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, to get that one person back. That is not optimal, but it's one of the things that makes us human.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you know that every time you go out in the field. I knew that I knew that anytime I went, if I would be deployed somewhere, I know another Marine would come and get me if I went down. They would literally sacrifice themselves. I had absolutely no doubt that. And that's even people that I couldn't fucking stand to hear talk. All right. But I know they would give my life for me. We would not hang out at a bar necessarily, but they would give my life for me. So when you see this as a species, what we're looking at, I would love to see us come together so we don't have to deal with those great filters, because there are so many existential problems. And what the hell are we piddling about? Gas stoves? I mean, and the illegal use of gas stoves. There are so many pissant culture war things that happen in this country, and not just our country, because it's very easily, we're in the middle of it, and we're in America, so we look at American problems. These pissant culture wars happen everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to kind of convey like how. I mean, I think most people could understand that a meteor hitting the planet is a catastrophic event. Most people would expect us to have planetary defense systems. But we don't. We have some stuff that's getting tested, but nowhere near on the scale that it should be for one of the more likely ways that our planet just randomly disappears.
You think the budget for that would be bigger? All right.
No kidding.
But it's not a global issue. It's a national issue.
Mm-hmm.
So our national issues tend to take precedence over global issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how we ever kind of get to that step where we end up making global issues more of an issue, concern.
A threat. I'll tell you plain, Tim. A threat.
Yeah.
All right. That's the only thing that motivates human beings is a fucking threat. All right. The Soviet Union, the United States, Great Britain, and a whole bunch of other countries came together for World War II. All right. Once the Nazis and the Japanese were defeated because they were a severe threat to the entire planet, what did we do? We developed nuclear weapons and aimed them at each other and we fell into 60 years of a fucking Cold War. Okay. The only thing right now you see NATO being strengthened. Why? Because Russia all of a sudden is a big ass threat again, and all of a sudden NATO seems very pertinent again. We only react to threats. And I'll tell you what, I hate to say it, we do better when we have a threat. Someone made this really awesome commentary in the 90s when American politics turned to shit, and what we see a lot of today, and we're reaping the benefits. Actually, we're just reaping the shit that came out of the 90s from this, is when the Cold War fell. Or when the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union fell, all of a sudden we were on top and we didn't have an existential threat. And all of a sudden, American politics got really nasty. Okay? We stopped working together. Why? Because we're on top of the hill and no one can possibly knock us off the hill. So fuck you, we're going to turn on each other. We do that. This tribalism bullshit will be the death of our society.
Yeah.
All right.
So outside of a threat, there's no other way you think they can
unify?
In my
opinion, no. You need an absolute threat. You need to show people what it means to be human, or else, because they do not tend to find humanity on their own at anything beyond one person.
Hey, aliens, you're out there listening. Make me like alien Superman or something. I'll be the threat. I'll get humanity on track. Just give me the power. I'll figure it out on the way.
Aliens, please don't make me shoot my friend Tim.
Also, make me immune to bullets. That'd be nice.
Son of a bitch.
So that can't shoot.
Kryptonite.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's move on to topic number 4. 5.
All right, question number 5. Are we as a species capable of existing on a planetary scale without letting our tribal nature get the best of us?
No.
Wow.
Next question.
Wow, way to shut down my liver with back-to-back shots. 5 and 6. Thanks, Dad. So going back to what we said, I hope so. Okay. But you know, I like the game XCOM. Dave, I know you like the game XCOM. One of the things that pulls everyone together, it's an international group of people who are out there fighting these aliens who are invading, right? Otherwise, you know, but even in that game, you have to rescue a triad operative, right? Or a guy from the triad who's going to get his head blown off if his former bosses catch him. We are tribalist by nature, and I really just wish, I think the answer is we need to find a way to change our thinking to realize that we're all part of the same fucking tribe.
Yeah.
The tribe is bigger than we think it is.
So, I mean, I guess it becomes difficult because whenever people are separated by some boundary, artificial or real, or, you know, like terrain or whatever else, people tend to identify with that boundary more than the actual civilization itself. So let's say we colonize Mars. Mars might consider themselves Martians and say that they can decide their own laws because they're super far away from Earth. What?
In 100 years, if we put humans on Earth, and probably less than 100 years, I have absolutely no doubt that they would cite the Declaration of Independence when they tell us to fuck off.
Yeah.
All right, because we're a colony and we're up here in this, and we don't have any say or anything like that.
It'll probably take past beyond, because we're going to colonize Mars here soon. I mean, like, it's not an inevitability, but Elon Musk and his whole SpaceX has a plan, and they've been doing pretty good with like their landing rockets.
I hope it works better
everything.
than their truck. But anyway, that's.
But I mean, you are right. Eventually, we could have a self-sustaining colony after we get like 200-300 people physically.
I mean,
right?
I think you get to a point where So for the gamers out there, I think that's one of the things in the lore of Halo. Also, if anyone's ever read like the Expanse series of novels and things like that, where these people just declare themselves independent and Earth fights to keep its colonies and shit like that. So this has been broached before. Would in 100 years, 200 years, would we even consider them humans? Would they be something different? Would they have evolved where, genetically from whatever the people that were first there, or the conditions on Mars, or the UV light or something like that are out there? What would maintain our humanity? And I hate to say this, but I think it comes back to the threat. Mm-hmm. If there was another threat out there, you can bet your sweet ass Martians are humans, right? When you get to the point where there's not a threat, Martians, people living on Mars all of a sudden declare themselves as Martians. You don't know what it is to look at Earth through a telescope. You don't know what our culture is. We have a completely different thing. We have our own version of Taylor Swift. Thank you very much. Fuck off.
Martian Swift.
Okay.
Martian slow.
Must be a gravitational thing. But all joking aside, I think you would see that because you see that in, looking back. I used to tell people history is not a magic 8-ball, but it's the best guide we have to the future, right? Because human behavior really has not changed. Okay. All that much. Every generation, hopefully we become a little bit more enlightened and we understand something, and we gain a little bit more wisdom. But when we get at our most barbaric level, when we get to the violent level, okay, we are capable of doing some really nasty shit to each other.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is we are slowly augmenting ourselves. Like every single human in America, I would assume, has a cell phone on them
just about
all the time. And then whenever Neuralink comes about, or the Apple Vision and stuff like that, and we start getting implants, it starts being some kind of cyberpunk reality.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, you could make the argument, and there's plenty of philosophers out there that have already made this. Did technology colonize us?
Wait,
did dogs colonize us? Did cats colonize us?
Definitely cats.
Definitely cats. I will give that, because cats did not adapt to being inside. They just said, "Fuck you, I'm living here now." And you'll free me to pick up my shit, ape. So there it is. But I mean, you think about this. This actually leads into something else. It's Dr. James Madden. He's talking about hyper objects, right? And is the UFO a hyper object? This is actually he's a professor of philosophy. And this is why, again, the UFO subject constantly fascinates me, because it's not just one subject. You cover the whole length and breadth of academia with this.
Right.
and talking about hyper objects and do UFOs represent something else, and what a hyper object is like the cells of my body do not realize they are attached to my body. They're just out there living their life, doing their job. Okay. We very much could be part of a hyper object that says, hey, we could be performing a function. My function is
Cancer.
Well, I'll tell you,
We are cancer.
well, I'll tell you what. No, but you make that joke. But there are people in this world that we would look at, whether they're law enforcement personnel, first responders, military, things like that, that we would consider, for lack of a better term, an antibody.
Or a white blood cell, yeah.
Or white blood cell that they go out there and handle that.
Jones, baby. I seen that movie.
That's right. I haven't, but what
You
I'm
haven't seen
saying,
Osmosis
no.
Jones? Get out.
Oh, my
Podcast
goodness.
is over. Thank you for joining us. This is Tim from Shot Takes.
I'm getting my last shot, motherfucker. Anyway, but in all seriousness, my job as a nurse, I go out there and I help people, and I get people through these trials. And when I was a cardiac nurse, I helped save them. As a hospice nurse, I bring comfort to them, and I bring comfort to that family so they can continue on. Every single person has a role to fill, and as much as there's this, I would say, this American mythology of individual freedom, and everyone's out there, so fuck you, we're all individuals. We don't realize how much of a part of a society that we are. I think that's going to come back and bite a lot of Americans in the ass, because you still have a responsibility to the greater good. And I'm not saying that as a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. I'm just saying that there are certain things, as a veteran, as a nurse, things like that, you look to the greater good because you realize that there is a certain sacrifice that has to be made. Even if it's as little as, I want to drive my car here. Well, I can't do that because that's somebody's living room. It's just, there are limits on this freedom. But what I'm saying is we all have a part in a society. We might be part of a hyper object we don't even know. We might be a part of a hyper object for the earth. We might be a part of a hyper object, for the planet. And when I say hyper object, I think one of the best examples is the economy, right? We all participate in the economy, but even an economist couldn't fully tell you what the economy is. Right?
Yeah, the economy is such an interesting thing, and it's a little bit off the alien topic, but I do want to talk about it because you brought it up. Like, all money is fake. We just all believe it works, and it ends up working, right? Like, what is the money you're holding in your pocket actually worth?
How much of our society is like that, though?
Yeah.
All right, we have certain norms and values that we all follow, at the very least, to curb, our individual urges. All right, men especially, like you just can't club a woman over the head and have sex with her. This is a bad thing.
Well,
This is a horrible. To some. But again, for those people who do not subscribe to that particular cultural boundary, we throw you in jail or we chemically castrate you.
No, we be clubbing dog.
Did you say we?
That's right. That's right. No, Your Honor, I was not privy to that. Anyway,
There you go, clubbing.
that's right. Don't ask me to hang out with you again, Tim. Yeah, I got enough shit going on. I don't need that, Tim. But what I'm saying is there are certain societal norms that we've all agreed upon that this is what makes society work. Okay. And I think one of the things, and if you want to take this back to the UFO topic, I think one of the things that why this is such a deep kept secret is how much would a society be disrupted if you realized you were not at the top of the food chain, because humans do believe we are at the top of the food chain on this planet and no one's proven us wrong yet.
I just feel like it's not a competitive gap. Like, I don't know, like I play a lot of video games, and whenever you like interact with like other like civilization, for example, like when you interact with somebody who's way beyond you, there's nothing you could do, even if you tried to catch up to beat them, right? Like the alien equivalent would be like you're playing a game of Halo or Call of Duty and you got 4 kills, you're feeling good, and then somebody steps into the lobby and he's just like Noob Killer XX7 and he's got 500 kills. Is like, I don't know how I'm gonna kill this dude 497 times.
Yeah, it's so looking at that, I mean, technically you could say that's possible. I mean, technically you could say If you want to go back to tribalism, all right. If everyone in that particular server decided to take down Nuke XX, whoever the fuck it is, superpower, one of the things we've learned is no one is invincible. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're flesh and bone, I'd assume, unless they became like robots.
Well,
right?
I mean, even then, you can put a hole in them. I think, I think so. And this might be a good time to bring this up because I sent you a link to a book called Imminent.
Find it.
Okay. So Luis Elizondo was the first person who got this whole UFO thing started, right? I'll tie this back in. Luis Elizondo led the government's UFO program. He resigned and sent his resignation to then Secretary of Defense Mattis during the Trump administration, saying, if we know all this, who the hell else knows? Okay. He is releasing a book in August. It's kind of long anticipated. I think Luis Elizondo has done more for basically him and Tom DeLonge of Blink 182. Who the fuck would have saw that one coming? Have done more for this particular subject of study than any two people. And to the Stars Academy. I will also take a moment and plug, Tom's new novel, Trinity. I'd check it out. But also the Secret Machines books. Because at the end of the day, this is very much a.
So it's Luis and who is this again?
Luis Elizondo. I would highly recommend. If you don't know who this is, and I don't have the time to get into this, I would highly recommend looking up who this gentleman is. Going back to the whole thing of we don't have government hearings on Bigfoot. So there is a group of people on Wikipedia that if you type in the names of Christopher Mellon, Luis Elizondo, things like that, anyone who's prominent in the UAP field or anything like that, there's a group of people on Wikipedia who will go in to purposely sabotage
information on
their to make these people sound crazy, which is another reason to the point where these people can't even
have a good reputation online. And
exactly, which again tells me if there's not a there, then why the fuck would you spend the time sabotaging these people? So I won't even bother reading the Wikipedia on that. I'm looking forward to his book. I recommend that you listen to his anything he's done on the podcast. I recommend you follow him on Twitter and other social media, especially Twitter, because he tends to be on there. I think he is a very honorable man from everything that I've seen. And Christopher Mellon, who I just mentioned, Christopher Mellon, going back to, it's not that people were talking about it, it's who was talking about this. Christopher Mellon is the former Assistant Secretary of Defense. Okay. Him and Luis Elizondo have done everything they could to bring this subject forward. So if these are the people who are talking, by God, I feel like it's up to us to listen.
It's not up on the screen yet, Tim. I'm just bringing it up in case you guys want to go into it.
Yeah, but I highly
did Elon ever say what he wants us to call this stupid platform?
X.
Just actually call it X?
Yeah, it'll always be Twitter. Fuck Elon. I don't like him. I'm 5 shots in. I don't give a fuck. Elon can fuck right off.
Elon, I'd love to have you on the podcast. Don't listen to him.
That's right.
I guess we can have Elon on.
That's right.
If you want to come on to my pitiful podcast,
that's right. Elon, I will not fucking be here when you are, so fuck off. I can't even tell you the sheer number of right-wing ads I get on my Twitter account just by sheer happenstance. But anyway, that's right.
Wow.
Twitter, Elon, Twitter.
You really think something's up this year?
Let's see. Friends, it's always most. Can you read that, Dave? Sorry.
It's always most quiet before the storm. There's no going back. Some members of Congress finally know what's going on. Some officials in the executive branch are scrambling. Yada, yada. This is going to be an interesting year for those who continue to obfuscate. We're hard at work for you.
That sounds like a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Cast obfuscate.
So he actually, that term comes up quite a lot when you study the UFO topic, because there are people who are doing their best to muddy the waters, and then when you throw in human our human capability to fuck over ourselves.
This guy gets some mileage on his like engagement here. Look at this. 1K comments, 1,500 retweets.
Yeah. That's
Almost
because
500K views. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, and if you are interested in this subject, actually, even if you're not interested in this subject, you should be following this guy because I think this is an important topic.
Okay.
There are plenty of people who think that this topic, because it doesn't affect their day to day. Actually, the exact same thing my wife said after we had our sightings in January. She said, "Okay, that was cool, but it doesn't affect my day to day." And I'm I'm like, if any of this is true, holy shit, because there's me who's going, look, if one Bigfoot sighting is true, if one ghost story is true, if one UFO story is true, our entire human paradigm shifts. So you should pay attention to it because this is a game changer. And she's like, okay, well, I got to go to work. And by the way, I packed the kids' luncheons if you could take them off to grandma. And I'm like, yeah, like, but it kind of blows my mind.
Every marriage needs one.
That's right. Every marriage needs one. But I will say this, God bless her. She indulges me on a Saturday night while she's watching the kids and she knows I'm going to talk to you about this on this podcast.
Exactly.
And I used to say, I joked with her a couple months ago, even before she had that sighting. I said, yeah, you got to deal with a husband that, actively will follow a UFO case. And she's like, yeah, but you know what? And this is really where things have changed. And I think we're at that point. But her quote was, yeah, but this isn't like 10 years ago. If you say the word UFO, that means something now. And because of people like Lou Elizondo, Tom DeLonge, Christopher Mellon, things like that, who have brought this to the forefront. The other part of this is Luis Elizondo gave up a military career to bring this forward. I guarantee you what he is making from this book that's coming out is nowhere near what he would have made in government benefits, things like that. He could have had a very padded retirement. And furthermore, he left in eight years ago. So what the hell has this poor guy been living off of for 8 years? Christopher Mellon, former Secretary of Defense, he came forward and he said, or Assistant Secretary of Defense, he came forward with Luis Elizondo and said, yes, this is a real thing. These videos are real. Our pilots are saying something. Ryan Graves, who was a pilot who was actually part of the reporting that came off the coast of Norfolk and his training ranges. He's a military pilot. He stepped forward. These people put something on the line to say this. All right. I'm coming to you. I'm a guy who's just following threads locally, right? I mean, there's no reason you should believe me. At the end of the day, I keep it. Everyone who works with me on a daily basis understands that I'm into this, and they'll send a story my way if they run across it, along with some ribbing and things like that. But there are people that gave up a hell of a lot more than me to talk about this subject, which to me, and these people aren't crazy. These people are absolutely not crazy, because I cannot think, this Senator Harry Reid, before he died, wrote a letter confirming that Luis Elizondo is exactly who the fuck he says he is. Mm-hmm. Christopher Mellon doesn't need someone to write him a letter because he was the Assistant Secretary or Deputy Secretary of Defense, right? These are serious people, which tells me when serious people start talking seriously about a subject, tells me I need to take that seriously. All right. Because these people,
like a doctor telling you have cancer,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And furthermore, it's not just one doctor who's coming up to you and saying
second opinion,
third opinion, fourth opinion, things like this. Which leads to some terrifying things, because once I started following this train of thought, if UFOs are real, then holy shit, what if alien abductions are real?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we saw it on there. We saw like the criteria there for people to report it. I would hope that people would report it to some entity other than just the website UFO reporting thing. And of all the stories you told me, it's still very hard from a person who's like not prescribed to a camp, I guess, on the topic. It's still very hard for me to kind of like take your word as Bible. It's I believe that you believe in what you've seen, but at the same time, I still have to. I feel like I don't know what outside of you know, me seeing some really compelling video evidence or me physically seeing it would make me believe that aliens have visited our planet. I believe aliens exist, but to believe that they have visited our planet, that is a very difficult thing
I
to
believe
sell.
that I saw anomalous lights in the sky. I didn't tell you that aliens landed in my planet. I didn't tell. Now I will tell you that I'm following up, and I'm not ready to talk about this, but stories that came from and about lights in a field and possible interactions from people who were, and this just happened within the last 2 weeks. And again, I'm not ready to go into detail about this.
Okay.
But from people, or this report that fell in my lap about people who saw lights close to them, that if you draw a compass azimuth from my location to where I saw those lights, that's where they live. So for me, that's a thing. To me, that's one thing. Like now, all of a sudden, this is corroborated with somebody. It may not be at the same time in the same, but it is in the same place. If I didn't wake up at those times in the night, I would have completely missed it. Okay. I remember when I sent that video to you the first time, you're like, dude, how much are you missing when you're sleeping if this is what you're picking up? And you know, I would love to have that. But I will say this, I did not come here feeling the need to prove anything to you. I don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Much like my job as a nurse, when I'm reporting to a doctor, the only thing I can do is say, this is what I'm seeing. This follows this category. This does not land in this category. Now, if you can actually pick this up, because I think if you typed it in right now, you would find the 6 observables for UAP. If you put that in there, Luis Elizondo, when he was in charge of either ATIP or OSAP, however, there's a big thing about that. But anyway, the government program that looked at UFOs that came out in 2017, they broke this down because he's an intelligence officer, and he broke this down and said, what defines, because you have to define it, right?
Yeah.
What the hell defines a UAP? What the hell defines a UFO? And if you find that, if you could put it up for us, Dave. But, you know, instantaneous acceleration, because there's nothing in our technology that instantaneously accelerates. Even a drone, as fast as it can accelerate, does not instantaneously accelerate.
Yeah.
I would tell you what I saw that night on March 24th, instantaneously accelerated. So yeah, the observables. The last one they added, it used to be 5 observables. They since added
did they?
biological effects.
Okay.
Because there are at least 40, and this came out in, I believe it's 40, that came out in a congressional hearing of 40 cases of people who have been in contact with UAP that have had negative medical effects.
The thing that gets me with instantaneous acceleration, I would assume that an alien race that came here, if they did come here or from another dimension or otherwise from space, whatever else here, I just don't know what purpose they would have physically coming down to the planet.
Well, I'll tell you what, going back to, you're thinking of this like a human.
Yeah.
You don't, I mean, does my dog understand my motivation of anything that I do over the course of any single day?
I would hope that at the end of the day, they're watching alien TikTok, right? I would hope that there is something behind
I hope they're not watching alien TikTok.
I have to assume, because like no matter how smart humanity is, right, it's still a culmination of all of our skills together that have made that machine fly. The people flying that machine, unless they're robots, I have to assume that they are just whatever their alien species has grown to accept as culturally normal.
I think you're thinking about this wrong.
How could I be thinking about it
I
wrong?
think you're thinking about this like a human being's thinking about this.
I mean, like we've gone from using stones and rocks and climbing up trees to avoid predators to flying literal spaceships to the moon, and we are still the same fucking things. Why should aliens be any different?
Because they're not us. Unless, I'll tell you what, there's a theory that they could be us from the future. That is one of the theories. So maybe they're going back, and man, just imagine what you would go back and study just about yourself if you could go back in your own timeline and be like, do not date that person. They're toxic as shit, you moron. But anyway, going back to this, the observables, instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocities without signatures.
Whoa, before you move on. Hypersonic velocity without signature. What is that?
Okay.
Typically above Mach 5. They
So
create a
what
signature.
happens whenever so there should be a sonic boom.
Right.
Okay.
When you get to a certain speed, something happens.
Something happens,
I gotcha.
right? So low observability or cloaking. This would be a perfect example of some of the lights that I saw. They appeared and then they disappeared. Okay. One of the things I did not bring up, and I tried and we switched this, but when it went back to reporting, there is Americans for Safe Aerospace, which is actually led by Ryan Graves, one of the F-18 pilots who, was part of the sightings off the coast of Norfolk. Okay. Because he looks at this as a flight safety issue. One of the things I pulled up on my flight radar as those instances were going on in that 10, 15 minutes, however long it lasted, that ball of light shot over, was it Lufthansa, whatever the German.
That is it's a Lufthansa.
But anyway, it shot over one of those flights that was out in front of me because I could see the plane. All right. I will tell you right now, if my wife and kids were on that plane, this just became a serious safety issue for me. I can tell you right now that I personally witnessed at least 150 people potentially being in danger from whatever the fuck was up there. Okay. To me, that's a big deal. I feel the need that I feel like I should report this to Ryan Graves, but I have not made an official report yet.
Maybe you should.
I should
You
because
should. Like you point out, is a realistic risk, right?
It's a realistic look.
What I was trying to say about the tribalism thing and like the people not caring, it's that we're all too busy trying to live our lives, right?
Yeah.
And until something is right in front of our face, I mean, look at the climate, for example, right? People are now just starting to wake up to it because now homes are getting washed away by the rising tides and things like that. And not to get on a soapbox about that, but my point is that when something becomes an imminent threat to humanity, that's whenever we care. Yeah. And so whatever this thing is, whatever you saw as a skeptic, I am concerned about the lights that you showed me on video. If that's a drone, that is somebody being extremely dangerous with a drone, if there was a flight over there at that point. If it is gas in the air, I don't know how that interacts with jets. Do we need to be aware of gas having an impact in that area? At the end of the day, something is happening. And when you equate it to it is a flight risk, for example, that's when people start waking up and being like, hey, there's something going on.
Well, I think that's why the threat narrative for this, and there are plenty of people, if you go into the extraterrestrial topic, they're like, oh, it's the Space Brothers and they're here and they're going to give us, global harmony and all that. Like, okay, guess what? I have no evidence of this because if anything I pull out of this is true, there are reports of planes potentially being downed by UFOs. Right. If anything that comes out of alien abduction is true, fuck you for me, for thinking that they're my safe brothers or they're space brothers here for harmony. Because if you shove something up my ass, you are not my friend.
They're space stepbrothers.
It's space stepbrothers. That's right. That's and they have so much more room for activities now, Tim. All right. So. But legitimately, they have not. There is nothing about this is proved necessary. It may not prove necessarily warlike, but it is not proved benign to me. And quite frankly, that's a whole other podcast, like talking about the studies at Skinwalker Ranch and shit like that. Whatever you think of the TV show, when you actually look at some of the books that were written in the documentation and things like that have gone out there. Holy shit!
Yeah, I'd love to do a whole podcast on that. And I don't mean to cut you off, but we are getting short on time.
Yeah, we're getting short on time. So
we have 10 minutes for the next topic.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about for this article before we move on?
No, but I will tell you right now, if any of our, there is way too much on this topic for everyone just to get through in one podcast. So I would look up the 5 or now 6 observables. If go to Dr. Google and figure that out, take a look at that. And one of the reasons I would tell you that I am personally witnessed a UAP because it fit the criteria of the 5 observables. Okay. Instantaneous acceleration. I did not hear anything. It did not, it fit at least part of the 5 observables where I can say this is something anomalous. But anyway, next question, let's roll.
All right. Question number 6 of Shot Takes. Let me get this out here because I need to kind of get some understanding of what it is I'm talking about.
Sure. Okay. You want me to read it off for you while you're...
Yeah, go ahead and read it off.
All right. So to land this plane, UAP, for number 6 tonight, how does the existence of aliens intersect with your religion or belief system?
That is a big one.
In 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes. That's right.
Actually, 5, because I got another topic just as difficult coming right out.
So the quick answer is it doesn't, because so I'm speaking as a Christian.
What kind of Christian?
I go to a Presbyterian church right now. Okay. I grew up evangelical Lutheran, which is like diet Catholic for any listeners out there who are familiar with the Catholic Church. I grew up in a church where I could comfortably get through a Catholic service. Okay. Even without being a Catholic. It was that close to it. But anyway,
Or without getting that close encounter.
Oh my goodness.
Gotcha, that's right. Anyway, the short answer is it doesn't. And here's the reason. As a Christian, okay, I am already of the belief that I am not at the top of the food chain. Okay, so there is God, there is Jesus, there is the Holy Spirit, there are angels, there are demons, there are archangels, and I'm assuming that the demons have their own culture over there, their own substructure, things like that. Cherubim, seraphim, things like that. So for me, the idea of something unseen and being higher than me and being able to do stuff is not a far reach, right? All right. I actively pray most days. I am beseeching a higher power. I don't believe I'm praying to aliens, but I am already comfortable not being at the top of the food chain. In some ways, I prefer that I'm not at the top of the food chain. So as far as these things go, I think you will find most major religions. I don't think it crosses Buddhism. Islam has come out and really said, life on other planets, things like that, is just more to the glory of God. The Vatican has already come out and said, hey, this doesn't affect Catholicism. I think anyone who believes in a higher power is going to come up with the idea of, if God created this world, then there is absolutely no reason, in his infinite wisdom, there is no reason, if he created the rest of the universe, that he wouldn't create other things. It almost seems illogical that God would create just us.
Almost prideful, even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You think he's doing like a Jesus thing on another planet, another galaxy?
He very well could be, because I'll tell you what, I think is, as much as I love my Bible, I think there are many paths to God. I think there's many paths to God's wisdom. I think God's wisdom is, I think if you ask a Christian, or if you ask a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Jew, anyone who believes in a higher power, I think if you said, where do you see God, you would get just as many different answers. I would answer that question, I see God in my kid's room. Because to me, that is the epitome of all the love in the universe. Is I have my children. I love my children. They are the greatest thing in my world. Okay. There are some who may not have my experience, but that would see God in a sunrise, or over a pristine valley, or in nature. All right. If you ask a Wicca where they see a creator or a goddess, they would say in nature or in something else. So it doesn't affect my beliefs that there's something higher on the food chain than me. Now,
I guess I would get out from the question too, in relation to like aliens coming here, they might have their own religions too, right? So like, would you be willing to listen and like accept religions that they might bring to our culture?
Well, so here's the thing. I'm accepting. Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I don't respect a Muslim's view on God, or a Jew's view on God, or a Buddhist belief, or a Wiccan belief, or even an atheist belief. All right. I am not a person who believes that I do not believe that God needs me to defend him. All right. I am not going to come, if an alien has a belief or something like that, I want to know, and me being inquisitive, I'll use an example out of my own religion. Okay. So you look at the book of Genesis, and you'll see people that will say, the universe took billions of years and the universe took 7 days, whether you're a creationist theory. I've never broken into one of those two camps. What I want to know is that guy that 5,000, 8,000, however many years ago the book of Genesis was actually written. If you look at the progression of what God created in those 7 days in Genesis, sounds an awful lot and fairly close to evolution, just on a different time scale.
I mean, even let there be light sounds like the Big Bang.
Right?
Yep.
So I want to know, and I think the question that is much more pertinent is how the hell the 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 years ago, this guy came up with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
we
close to it.
we
Yeah.
may not get the time frames right, but somebody gathered the idea of creation. So now we're just arguing over a time scale. And this may be a little off topic, but I'm much more willing to hear those ideas, because at the end of the day, I am not God. I do not accept the Bible as the absolute complete iteration of everything that factually happened over the last, or everything that happened like 0 BC and back.
Right.
All right. I understand that it's an interpretation. I understand that there's a whole bunch of interpretations of the Bible and translations and things like that, because man touched it, and everything that man touches is going to have its changes, even in translation, right? So, I don't accept that the Bible in front of me is completely accurate in the sense of being, nope, we can bank on this right here. To me, I believe in God. I'm a Christian because I believe in Jesus. I think he was an incredible teacher. If I'm being perfectly honest and open, I don't even need all the miracles for Jesus. I love his message. Love one another. Take care of one another. Look out for your brother as you would yourself. All right. I believe my feeling of how I look at God is love. And anytime that I show love in the world, I'm doing God's will. And if I err on the side of love, and I take this to my politics, if God doesn't like gay people, that's not up to me, because my commandment from Jesus was love one another as you would love yourself. Okay? Love one another. So it does not matter if the person across from me is gay or trans, black, white, red, yellow, pink. It does not matter what the hell is in front. And I take that into my nursing. It does not matter if the person in front of me has AIDS. It does not matter if the person in front of me has Ebola, COVID. I've taken care of a person with a fucking swastika tattooed between, on their fucking forehead like Charles Manson.
I thought you were going to say somewhere else.
All right. But it doesn't fucking matter, because it's my job to take care of them. Whether or not, if we were on a battlefield, I'd put a bullet in his fucking head or not. Because in that particular moment, he's in my care, and it is my job to take care of him.
I mean, what does Jesus say true religion is? Is that a brother would lay down his life for another?
Yeah.
So you're exhibiting true religion.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's probably why the alien thing fits within your framework, is because if it's a creation of God, it's technically a brother of yours.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't necessarily, unless they're showing some sort of existential threat, to, because let's face it, the world's not, and I think even if you do a deep dive in the Bible, there's plenty of violence in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a proper translation is, thou shalt not murder instead of thou shalt not kill, because there's plenty of killing in the Bible. Okay.
Mandated killing.
Yeah. So, I think I think a person is within their rights to protect themselves. But I don't believe that I don't need to defend God. And if aliens come down here, then so be it. They're part of that. I think I always, and if they are from another planet, I expected life on another planet anyway. So here we are. And if they're not a threat, and if they can teach us to do something better, great.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say to that is, as with our knowledge, we come across, uncomfortable truths in a sense, right? Like truths about the universe, how it works. Like, you can't say that gravity doesn't work the way it works, or that the speed of light isn't this, X number. I fear that maybe one day aliens might come down here and speak a truth that is defiant to our current understanding of how, religion has functioned over all these years.
I feel that all truth is uncomfortable to somebody.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get around that. Okay. For me, it was finding out that girl in high school didn't like me the way I thought she did.
Oh.
But was it an uncomfortable truth? Absolutely. Did it sting? Yes. Did I adapt, overcome, and move on with my life? Yeah. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen to human society once we realize this, because living a beautiful lie, and this might be my pragmatism coming from hospice, because I don't get to tell people beautiful lies. It's Saturday. Yesterday, I told a woman who was married to her husband for 62 years that he has 24 to 48 hours to live. I read right before I came here in a work email that he passed. Okay. That is an uncomfortable truth, but I still have to speak it because it is the right thing to do.
Well, that's been a very informative. There is so much with this alien topic. We could have gone X different of directions.
Oh,
with
we
it.
could have gone another 10 episodes on this.
Yeah, it is so difficult. If you guys want to see more, let us know. But it was a pleasure talking to you guys about this. I think we shared a lot of great information and knowledge. And I would definitely talk about this topic again in the future in any capacity. Is there anything else you want to add, Matt?
No. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure with you guys. I really enjoy it.
I've been Tim from Shot Takes. That's been Matt and Dave. Think responsibly, viewers.